Wait.
And
now we're live.
And now we're live. Hello, Pensacola.
Hello, Pensacola.
It's Charlotte and Jessica.
That's right.
And we are coming from you live at Aragon Wine Market in Pensacola, Florida.
We are indeed.
It's October.
Can you believe it?
Yeah, I can actually. October is actually my favorite month of the year. I love fall, and my favorite holiday is Halloween. So I am trying to decide if, not trying to decide. Of course, I'll have many costumes on deck. I'm trying to decide which costumes will come first and to what event. We may even go to New Orleans for Halloween. Mm-hmm. One of the spookiest cities in the country. Also, St. Augustine is one of the spookier cities, if you're wondering about spooky cities in the country.
But not the first city. Let us tell you, we are the first city here in Pensacola. So before you get confused, it may be spooky, but we came first.
Well, we're haunted too.
We are indeed.
Pensacola's haunted. St. Augustine is, of course, haunted. All the older cities, Boston's probably haunted, I'd imagine.
There are actually haunted tours you can do, not to do like a shameless plug for Nick with
Yep. Well, that is a shameless plug.
It's a shameless plug, but we love him. But he does haunted tours on the Segways, which I've not done, but sound really, really cool.
Yep. He also does drinking tours on the Segway, which I think sound fun, but you got to hang in there and make sure you don't fall over. But yeah, the guys over there are great. They love Pensacola.
Emerald Coast Tours. Yes.
Emerald Coast Tours. It's Nick. Tell him we sent you. Haunted tour sounds fun. Liquor tour sounds even more fun. Maybe a haunted liquor tour. For Halloween, he's probably got something cool planned. So we do have the next few months planned here at Aragon. We're kind of trying to get together for the holidays and get our stuff prepared. We're already booking holiday parties here. We've got a couple on the books already. So if you are thinking holiday parties, we are doing some holiday parties here. We can do kind of an inside-outside kind of thing, and they should be a smaller size. We're keeping them kind of small right now.
We're definitely perfect for an intimate, smaller group for either a corporate or executive event, or perhaps a private event, personal event. If you want to do some kind of family gathering, it would definitely be appropriate for under 30 people on a flow, inside, outside with a courtyard. Great for doing some heavy hors d'oeuvres that we can bring in from a beautiful caterer in the area, and certainly provide the amazing wines for you right here through Aragon.
And I'm just going to stop you there, because if you have something that's maybe a bigger party that you want to do, Jessica is an event planner, my right hand, events. And she really knows everything about planning events, and so we're fortunate to have her here. So if you want a small little event, that's fine, but do feel free to reach out to her here at Aragon for your events.
We can do something small here, but yeah, absolutely, that's exciting to keep in mind. I am available for freelance, and
for sure,
certainly have hosted anywhere from 30 to 3,000. people for a private event, and plan some very large scale logistics for a number of different events in our community.
We won't say where she was coming from because we don't want to plug them. But it was a large resort in
5 towers, 28 acres, and I was there for a very long time, and it was a beautiful chapter.
And it's over.
And I'm excited to be free and be able to do whatever, and be able to do these freelance and different events all over. This weekend, I'm going to be out at Shiloh Farms, which is out in Molino, for a beautiful wedding.
Sounds so neat.
By Quinta and Hunter, and that's exciting.
That sounds really cool.
Just having the beauty to be able, there's a Saturday in December that I'm going to be over in Fairhope at it's called actually the Venue in Fairhope, and it's a beautiful place right there downtown Main Street. So any number of different event opportunities, whether you do it in-house through Aragon Wine Market or want to do freelance and do some kind of fun event out in the community, I can still provide the wine for your event, and we're excited to have that opportunity.
Absolutely. And speaking of holiday wines, we are getting our holiday wine boxes prepared. We always do one for Thanksgiving and one for Christmas. or 2 for Christmas. So the Thanksgiving one is heavily in prep work right now. So we'll be announcing those soon. So keep in mind, if you want your Halloween, not Halloween, that's my favorite. If you want your holiday boxes, Thanksgiving is first, and get on board with that. So let's talk about how this works. Most of you guys have watched before, and what we do is we tell you at the end of this broadcast which wines that we're featuring for next week. And so hopefully everybody's got their wines from Portugal. We're featuring the wines from Quinta de Rosa, and there's a still wine and a port, because I know everybody's got to love port from Portugal, that we'll be doing tonight. I've never visited Portugal, and it's definitely on my short list. Since the pandemic, I've decided that once we are able to travel, I'm only going to go to places that I've never been, because I'm terrible about going back to places that I love, places that feel like home to me, and and so I'm terrible about that, which is not a bad thing either.
I'm just so ready to travel.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm so excited the opportunity, just to have it on the horizon to be able to travel somewhere. I've never been to Portugal. I've never been any of these places.
So I see Portugal is beautiful. Loved it. Can't wait to go. That is definitely on my short list. That, and believe it or not, I've never been to Spain. So Spain and Portugal, I think, would be a good combo trip right there. So, so most of the people think about port when they think of Portugal, but we have a still wine on deck first, and so that'll be fun to talk about. But I'd like to introduce Phillip, who is the owner of the Quinta de Rosa. Hi, Phillip, and Monsieur Fix.
Hi, good evening.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
And
Hola,
Phillip.
It's getting late here. It's getting late.
It's past midnight there now, correct?
Yes. So I mean, it's just past midnight now, and it's cold. It's cold and miserable in this part of the world now. Fall has gone into winter now.
We're in sunny Florida, so and it's quite warm in Pensacola right now, even though we're northern Florida. When you say it's cold, how cold is it?
We're getting down to we work everything in centigrade, so we're down to about 5 or 6 centigrade now.
Oh wow!
God, what is that?
That sounds cold.
Probably about 37, 39 type area. It's beginning to get cold.
So it's colder than it normally gets here in Pensacola.
Yeah.
When we're talking 40-degree weather, I would say that's probably our chilliest.
Yeah, that's cool. If it starts with a 7, it's cold to me. So you can imagine how
it's perfect. It's perfect for port wine. It's great port wine temperature.
Absolutely.
Let's live vicariously in the port wine richness of the cool weather. I love it.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, we do have a hotel in Portugal. So after the pandemic is over, come and visit.
So you know, I might have been pitching that in my intro, because I did look at your website and I saw, oh my gosh, it looks like a beautiful place, and they have a place to stay. So I'm all on board. Count me in. I can't wait. And I do appreciate you joining us so late in the evening.
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit more.
I mean, normally I would be across in the States at this time of year. I had a trip planned to the West Coast, but obviously that's all been curtailed, and I've got another virtual wine tasting with the West Coast, which I think will be about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. So later.
So you have another one after us. Well, we're happy to be your prelude. Yeah, that's right. My goodness.
Yes,
Yeah, hey, we're keeping you awake, so that's good.
Well, the property of Quinta de Rosa is so beautiful, and I know, just looking at the website, you have an estate there and areas where you do weddings and events there that are absolutely stunning. And just in some of the history and researching some of the background of this, back to 1815 was when the family first initially owned it, and obviously I know it's gone through a few stages of ownership. But could you kind of paint the picture for us of the history of this beautiful winery?
Yeah, absolutely. As a family, we've been in Portugal since 1815, as you rightly said. The vineyard itself has only been in family hands since 1907. And it was given to my grandmother as a christening present. So when she was baptized, her grandparents gave her a vineyard. I mean, amazing. I mean, I got a pair of socks and a hairbrush. And
I don't know if I got that much.
And the hairbrush isn't much use at the moment. So she got a vineyard. It was small. It was only an acre. And my great grandfather, who ran it on her behalf, grew it to about 25 hectares. And he bought adjoining properties and amalgamated them with Rosa. However, in the 1920s, my grandfather got into some big financial problems, and his shipping company, where we used to sell the port to, called Foyher Brothers, went bankrupt. And at the time, it was a real worry that the vineyard might have gone with the company. However, the vineyard was in private hands, and so therefore it stayed with my grandmother. My grandmother lived out in Portugal, lived on the property, which is very, very unusual, up in the middle of the Douro. And she went from being a port shipper to a farmer. So she just grew grapes and sold the grapes initially to Croft and then to Sandemans. And then in 1988, we decided as a family that we were going to go it alone. We were going to break all our ties with the big boys, and we were going to start actually making port initially and table wine afterwards. Now, I don't know if your viewers know enough about Portugal. I can show some pictures of where it is located. I can share my screen.
That's very great. We would love to see some pictures.
Do it.
I know
we're Americans. We like pictures in America. We like to have pictures and stuff in our hands.
You like pictures. You like pictures. So this is a map.
Northern Portugal, correct?
So this is a map of Portugal. It is showing all the wine areas of Portugal. And if you go to the sort of top right-hand corner, the orange bit, that is that's the port growing region. So it is the oldest demarked region in the world for a wine. And this is the only area you're allowed to make port. Now, other countries make port-type wines, but rather like champagne, it should not be called port. It can only be called a port-type wine. However, the Portuguese government isn't as, should I say, ferocious as the French government. And the Portuguese government isn't sort of really on top of it. So a lot of countries, including America, Australia, etc., make wine which is called port. The property is on the River Douro. Whoops, I will need to.
Hold on.
Here we are.
There we are. That's just me. We're trying to figure out which screen.
So hopefully you can see a picture of the river
and
vineyard and
the winery.
So the buildings in the center of the picture are the winery, the hotel. It is situated right close to the River Douro, which is the heart of the port growing region.
Wow, that's beautiful.
And as you can see, it is steep. The picture doesn't quite do it justice, but these banks are steep. They're very, very steep. So all the land has to be terraced. And you can see in the picture that all our vines are terraced. So everything has to be done by hand. There is some mechanization, but most things are done by hand. Now, in Portugal, there is a sort of an allocation of quality, and all the vineyards in the Douro region are graded by the government between A and F. And there are 19 different criteria: the way you plant the grapes, the vines, the aspect, the altitude, etc. All our vines are A graded. So everything on the property is A graded. And anything which we grow, we make and we bottle ourselves. So nothing sort of leaves the property unless it's under our control, which is quite unusual.
Yeah.
There's another picture of the property with the river and the vines in the background. We have.
I think that image, those last two images give a better depiction of the depth of that.
Yeah.
That hill right there, and just to speak to the terroir that it's grown on. It's amazing to see it in that different perspective and just see how low the estate is in that valley comparatively to the rest of where the area is farmed.
Yeah, it's beautiful. And that river.
Stunning.
And so we have about 100 hectares. So that is about 250 acres of vines, of area under vines. We also have another property about 60 miles away, which you have another 100 hectares of vines as well.
Is this where you're coming from us from
No,
right
actually,
now?
at the moment, I'm in quarantine in England. So we're a classic Anglo-Portuguese family. We've been in Portugal since the 1815. However, as you can hear from my accent, I'm educated and brought up in England.
Yes.
However, my heritage is a complete mixture. I'm English, German, French, Scottish, Irish, you name it. But strange enough, I'm not Portuguese. So there is a number of Anglo families which have an interesting sort of relationship with the port industry. The biggest company is called the Symington Group, and they own Dow's, Wars, and Graham's, and they are all English.
Yeah.
Taylors are also English.
Yeah.
So there is this very strong bond between the English and the Portuguese. And it's the only country that England has not declared war against in Western Europe. So, England back in those days has had a few little battles with the Americans, with the French, with the Spanish, with the Germans a few times, with Russia, but never Portugal. And so it's the longest serving non-aggression treaty in the world.
That's hilarious. Well,
yeah.
we know why.
So I'll just skip through some of these other photographs. I wanted to really show you how the vines are planted. So this is the old traditional method. And here there are dry stone walls, and these walls are 80 to 100 foot high. No cement, no concrete. It is all just rock over rock.
That's amazing looking.
Wow.
You can't quite sort of get the idea of how tall they are, but they are very tall.
So I don't think I've ever seen vines grown like that anywhere else. Do you know of any other places in the world that they grow them with that stone wall like that?
There is a bit in the Rhone in France, but not much. It's really the Rhone is the only other area which has the steep-sided valley where they.
That makes sense. Yeah. Beautiful.
So we have one particular area which is called Val d'Inferno, which my great-grandfather built. Well, he didn't build himself, but basically in the 1900s, these walls were built. And they're now the tallest and the oldest walls in the Douro region. And now they're protected under a UNESCO heritage. So we can't touch them. And if they fall down, we have to put them back up. So, and here is where some of our best wines come from. There's always a.
Sorry, I was just going to say, when you say you have to put them back up, do you have to follow strict guidelines on how you put them back up?
Absolutely, absolutely. They've got to be put back in exactly the old traditional method. And it's very hard to find a stonemason to do it. They're very short supply, and they're getting very old and dying, sadly.
Yeah.
So from here is some of our best wines come, and we actually have a wine called Val d'Inferno, which is our top premier dry red wine. There's another sort of artistic shot of the vineyards.
Oh, wow.
That absolutely, I think, really depicts. It was harder to see in the other imagery, like the slope of that, but that really paints a better picture of how deep that really is.
Absolutely. I mean, it is very steep. And all these vines, and I'll show you some pictures later, they're picked by hand. So we have no mechanization for picking.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Our property stretches right to the top of the hills. So this is a picture from the top of our vineyards looking down. So when you look down in the shadow, that is where La Rosa is based. But we have vineyards going all the way up to the top of the hills. And this is a huge advantage for us because certain years climatically, it might be very hot, and therefore actually the vines at the top of the hill might be better than the ones closer to the river. Or conversely, it might be quite a cool year, and the ones at the bottom near the river will do better. So we've always got some vines and therefore some grapes which will do exceptionally well. So we're well placed to produce excellent ports and wines.
Interesting. Well, you said produce excellent port and wine, and I do think that a lot of people, when they think Portuguese wines, they think port, only port. But there are some wonderful still wines, and I know the first one we're doing is the Douro Rosa. I finish your presentation, and then we'll talk about that one if you will.
Absolutely, it will flow on to that wine, because I will talk very briefly that the vines there, you can see from this old vine, which is 100 years old,
yeah,
that the soil condition is very, very hard for anything else except for a vine really to grow on. We have fundamentally 5 different grape varieties which are approved by the government for port production. We use those same grape varieties to make the table wine as well. So we don't sort of select a Cabernet Sauvignon or a Syrah or a recognizable red wine grape. We use a port grape for making table wine or for making port.
So, and this was one of the questions that I kind of had. Oh, and you're getting into it right now. I'm terrible. I'm awful with remembering the different grapes of Portugal. I mean, I know that, and I can't pronounce them very well. Is there a secret to how to remember them and how to pronounce them?
It is difficult. Luckily, the varieties in the Douro, which the Douro is famous for, are easier than some of the ones from southern Portugal. So for us, the most important grape variety is something called Touriga Nacional, which is what I'm showing on the slide now.
Yeah.
This produces a really sort of dense black currant type structure in wines. It's really the backbone of the wine. You can produce a wine which is a single varietal, and then on occasions we do. However, we always believe that it's better to have a blend. Each grape variety has a particular forte to it, a particular strength, and actually in a combination they work very well together. So the Touriga Nacional for us is the backbone of the wine. It gives it structure, it gives its longevity, it gives its tannic structure, but it has quite a closed nose, quite a closed aroma to it, and therefore we have Touriga Franca, which has a much more violet, much more expression on the but lacks a bit of structure itself.
So just I'm thinking, when you're describing these, I'm thinking the first one reminds me of Cabernet Sauvignon. The second one may be a Petit Verdot. Is that?
Yes. I think the Cabernet Sauvignon is most probably one of the few grapes which is very much an all-rounder. It has the structure, but it also has quite a nice nose, and you can have it very much as a varietal, single varietal. While if you have a Touriga Nacional as a single varietal, which you can, it is very close. You're there for the mouth feel rather than the total expression of the wine. And for us, we really use three grape varieties for our wine and table wine. The other one is called Tinta Roriz. and that is I suppose that is closest to the Temporino grape from Rioja.
Okay.
It's a sort of most probably a sister or a brother or a cousin. It's not quite the same, but it's a derivative of. And so that gives a lovely middle palate. It gives that lovely expression for the wine and a bit more onto the nose and structure as well. However, we don't use that much Tinta Roriz. We find it difficult to mature. So only certain areas where we have full sun can we actually get full maturation on the Tinta Roriz. As I said earlier, everything is handpicked. So these are some of the ladies who are picking during September. Our harvest starts in September and normally lasts about 6 weeks. This year, it started in August and lasted about 3 weeks. It was a very small year, and it was a very dry year for us. And coupled with the pandemic, it was a year most probably we didn't really want to remember.
Yeah, I think that's an accurate depiction of 2020.
Exactly. We're still going to produce some fantastic wines from it, but there are not going to be very many of them.
Yeah,
the quantity is way down.
I think a lot of regions have had challenges as well, so maybe tough in the future.
I think you're right. I think it's tough around the world, and I think a lot of people just want to forget about this year.
I love this.
We are a great believer on using traditional techniques where the traditional techniques work. And I'll give a sort of 101 on port now. I know we'll come back and talk about the table wine in more detail on the Rosa. But just a 101 on port. Port is a fortified wine, which means that we add alcohol to stop the fermentation. Nothing is added except alcohol. So when the grapes arrive, they are crushed and then put into these tanks called lagars, which are granite tanks. No yeast is added. It's just natural yeast which is on the skins, and the fermentation slowly commences over a period of about 5 days. To be able to extract as much color as possible out of the skins, we put people in. And it's the action. It's a really strange thing. It's the action of the foot, the skin of the foot, on the skin of the grape on granite, which is quite rough. So we don't want to break the pip because we don't want to get the horrible green tannins and all the wrong phenols, but we want to get as much extraction from the grapes as possible. Because we are time limited here, when the sugar content of the grapes, which we measure with a hydrometer, reaches a certain level, we take the juice off and we add brandy. The brandy will kill the yeast and stop the fermentation, and therefore the product will be sweet and alcoholic. So for us, we measure our sugar content in an old-fashioned method called Beaumet, which is a potential alcohol measure. So our grapes will come in at about 14 Beaumet, which would mean if we fermented those all the way to a dry red, it would be a 14% alcohol wine. What we do is we measure it until it reaches about 7 Beaumet. So it's still got 7 potential alcohol measures left. And then we drain the juice off and we add brandy. And so the port is sweet, naturally sweet. We don't add any sugar, and it's alcoholic at 20%. The sugar content's equivalent, I'm afraid, again, metric, it's about 90 grams per liter of sugar. That's about what our ports are. We tend to take our ports off a slightly lower level of sugar, just because that's the house style we like. There's nothing wrong or right about it. Other competitors tend to be slightly sweeter, we tend to be slightly drier. So here are a few more pictures of our treading team.
Fun.
If you tread every single day for the 6 weeks we're harvesting, it takes about 4 months for the color to go from the bottom of your feet.
No, really? Oh, that's awesome. Wow. So if one were to visit during harvest time, would
absolutely, we encourage everyone to get in.
That's awesome.
So to begin with, it's a very regimented, this is what they're doing here. It's a regimented sort of march. It's called the court, which means the cut. And they link arms and they go left, right on the spot. And then they go advance and they move one step forward, left, right. And it makes sure that all the grapes are trodden. And then halfway through the evening, we have a song called the Freedom Song, El Libertad. And then after that, music comes out and everyone dances and it's much more jolly. So it's a serious business, but it's also a fun business. And any visitors who come and stay with us in September, October, they're more than welcome to jump in.
Oh, awesome.
I love that. Absolutely.
Challenge accepted.
4 months and my feet will be burgundy red.
Exactly. And it is fun. I mean, there are lots of people. We have lots of guests from all around the world, and they all get in. And you get given a T-shirt saying "I trod La Rosa." So
I've got to do this.
Yes.
Ada's chiming in on our chat. I want to work there. Yes, me too, Ada.
Yes. I feel like you're gonna have a group trip.
Absolutely. You know, we love having groups. You know, it's like anywhere around the world. The harvest is the most important time. It's after that year's worth of hard toil on the ground in the land, and then you're bringing in, you know, that's your harvest, and it's a very important, and it's a very stressful time, but also a very important time.
It's really neat.
But obviously, you know, we don't just make port. Most of our port is foot trodden, as shown, but we also have stainless steel tanks where we make our table wine, because making table wine in the old-fashioned way in a lager like port, you can't get the balance of the wine. So with a port, it's fine because it only stays there for 5 days and then it's drained off. However, with a table wine, you've got much longer, and you want to be able to keep all those aromas. So we have the standard stainless steel fermentation tanks that everyone around the world uses. And I haven't got a picture of those because they're all rather boring. So we are a great believer that, again, we store a lot of our wine in wood. Now, the wine we're going to be tasting, the Douro River, is our only exception. It is an unoaked wine. So we have one unoaked wine, and the rest of our wines are oaked. We're a great believer in French oak, and this is one of our barrel rooms. We have 3 barrel rooms, and this is one of our barrel rooms where we have stacks of French barriques, 225-litre barriques. We believe that is the best wood for our wines. We've experimented with American oak, Spanish oak, Portuguese oak. We've even experimented with Russian oak made by a French cooper. But at the end of the day, our winemaker believes that the French oak is the best.
Yeah, as a lot of the world does.
Yes, indeed.
Exactly. And I'm still to this day really surprised that the French can produce enough barrels. I mean, you know, where does all this wood come from? I mean,
yeah, I know.
I know there are the Allier forests are very, very large, but I mean, you know,
that's another show. Maybe we could take it on the road and go to France and discover where all this wood is coming from.
Exactly, because it's amazing. Now with port is different. We still store it in wood, and this is our port, one of our port storing areas. It's called an armazén, or a lodge in English. And here we're not trying to get any flavors of wood. So what we're doing, we're just trying to store and slowly oxidize the port through air seeping in through the wood. So these barrels, or what we call tunnels, and they hold about 17 to 20,000 litres. This is where we put the port. We don't store it in stainless steel, we store it in wood. And these barrels are old because we're not trying to get any flavors.
Yeah.
They've been here forever. And some of our barrels have been there since the 1800s.
That's amazing. Wow.
And this is the old traditional method, and it's all just on the property. So just straight above that, that's one of our barrel rooms for the table wine, and here's the port.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Oh, who's this?
So this is George. This is George, our winemaker.
Hi, George. He's quite cute.
So I used to make all the, I don't know why it says unnamed, but I used to make all the wines and the port until 2001, and then we employed our new winemaker George, who's taken our wines and ports to a new level. So he's been here since 2002, and he's been voted, I think, best winemaker in Portugal 3 or 4, maybe 5 times in a row. He's a
nice
man.
accolades.
Yeah, really, really amazing accolade.
That's nice.
Amazing man. So that's the range of our table wines. We are going to be tasting the Rosa, which is the first one. So I think most probably now is a good time to go back and if I can and stop sharing.
And so the Douro Rosa is the first one, and so this is the only one not done in.
So this is the only one. This is the only one not in oak.
Interesting. So it's still got quite a rich flavor to it, though. I don't know that I would. I mean, it's not detectable, but it's not. It's got a very richness to it, despite the fact that it doesn't see any oak.
Absolutely, and that is because we're still using those 3 Portuguese grape varieties. We're still using the Touriga Nacional, not so much of it, but we're using Touriga Nacional, Touriga Franco, Touriga, and Touriga Roriz, and the Roriz. So it's still the same 3 grape varieties. These tend to be slightly younger vines, so it's slightly fresher. But with the Touriga Nacional, this just gives the structure of the wine, which makes it last for a long time, even if it hasn't got any oak. You know, it's still drinking beautifully.
Yeah. And that's why you say that you wouldn't use the Touriga Nacional as a standalone wine variety grape.
Yeah, personally, I mean, you can buy Touriga Nacional as a single varietal wines. For us, we think it's lacking something. We think it's a bit too austere just by itself.
Mm-hmm.
We feel that it will just be too tannic, not enough expression in the middle palate, and closed on the nose. And so we believe a blend is much better. Now,
so because it's got that structure, and I don't know how age worthy is, say, even this without even oak on it.
We say in our sort of tasting notes at least 5 years, and you know we're still tasting the 2012 Douro Rosa, and that's still drinking fine. You know, it's 2016 was not a brilliant year, but it was a good year. It was quite wet to begin with, so the vines suffered initially, but then we had a long, hot, dry summer, and so by the time they were picked, they were actually in fantastic condition. So it had a poor start, but an amazing end, and the wine has got a structure which will last for another 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I think it drinks a lot like a really good Bordeaux in that way. You know, it has structure, it has acid, it has aromatics, and there's very few, not to compare wines, you know, wine regions to each other, but if you were to get a Bordeaux that was like this, it would cost you probably a lot more. This is a wine that you can sit down and have a great long leisurely dinner over or decant, and that it is a 16 like we said, but it's going to be drinking very good, I think, for a number of years. So, you know, it really shows how good table wines are from Portugal that a lot of people are not familiar with. I've been championing these wines for a long time. I think that the table wines from Portugal are some of the best in the world. And this is a great example of something that, you know, can rival some of the best Bordeaux or Chianti or something like that easily.
Absolutely. And we touch on this all the time that we have moderately priced bottles. You know, you said on, you know, this is a 2016, but it's priced at $16 a bottle. And at that price point, to par with those other Bordeaux and those things that you just mentioned, it really is, it drinks so well at that moderate price point. Absolutely.
Yep. you're preaching to the converted at this end. At this end.
For those of you that didn't know.
So I got a quick question.
Yes, I mean,
sorry.
yes.
Just it's kind of off topic a little bit, but kind of still on topic. But I'm just curious because we were talking about ageability and of this wine. I'm wondering what is your what do you have in your cellar that that might blow our minds age wise? Because I can imagine you've got some really interesting stuff in there.
From our own vineyard or from other people's vineyards? Because we do a lot of trading. We do a lot of trading. So when we go around, especially sort of locally in Portugal and in Europe, and we're going by car, I fill the car up with our own wines, and then we do what we call a troca, which means we exchange our wines for someone else's.
That's awesome.
I think I was born in 1962, giving the game away. And 1962 was a terrible year for port. However, and not very many vintage ports of 1962 were actually made. But through contacts and friends, I do have a couple of bottles of 1962.
Wow.
And that's most probably one of my sort of prized possessions. And they're very hard to come by. I've opened one and it's been delicious. I'm not opening the others, not quite yet.
It's not time.
Yes, exactly. Sadly, because my grandmother was looking after the property before we took it over in 1988, we don't have an amazing back cellar. We do have a few bottles of 1924 La Rosa vintage port, which again we're saving for us for a special day. Otherwise, we really start from the 60s. So my sister, who runs the property on a day-to-day basis, she was born in 1960. And so we have a lot of 1960 and 63, because that was the year after I was born, and that was a very good year. Traditionally, when you were born into a port family, you got given a pipe of port. Now, a pipe is 550 litres or 57 cases of port.
Wow.
Which is a great thing. So we had a pipe of 1960 and a pipe of 1963 port.
Wow.
And we still got quite a lot of it left. So it's drinking very well at the moment. That's traditionally what happened.
Brilliant. Yeah, that's incredible. I love hearing stories like that because especially with the family run, and I mean, even to have something from the 20s is crazy, whether you have, you know, a couple bottles or a case. I mean, that's, absolutely. That's amazing. And for us, I mean, something from the 60s because of, you know, we're pretty new country over here.
Yes, yeah.
And new stuff. So, so that's still pretty impressive to me. So, very interesting. So, back to the Douro Rosa. I believe I saw that that it could be slightly chilled.
Absolutely. Again, I was going to mention that is that we quite often, when it's really hot, and obviously in Pensacola it's always hot, yes. But in Portugal, when it is summer, we quite often put this in the fridge and we chill it, and it's very, very good wine to have at lunch, chilled, etc. You don't have to have it at room temperature. Nice.
Well, we're getting closer to the end, so I think that we should probably move on to the
absolutely. Let's move onto a port. Now, there are a lot of people are very confused with ports. So there are two lines on the port. There's a ruby line, and then there's a tawny line.
Yeah.
So the ruby line starts, and ruby basically meaning it's the color, and the entry level is a ruby port, and that tends to be 2 to 5 years old, and it's ready to drink in the bottle. It's non-vintage, so it's a blended port. And then we go up to a vintage character style port. It's a bit older, maybe 5 to 7 years old. We have something called Finest Reserve in that category. Then you go into dated ports. The next one after that will be a late bottled vintage port, which means it's not quite good enough to be a vintage port, but actually it's pretty good. But we want to keep it as 1 year, and we just keep it in those barrels a bit longer. So we keep it in for about 4 to 7 years in those wooden barrels, and then we bottle it, and it's ready to drink as soon as it's in the bottle. It won't necessarily get any better in the bottle. We do put a bit of sediment. We do bottle it with a few lees in it, so it will it will last. And then the king of the wines, of the ruby side, is the vintage port. Now that is only in an exceptional year. It's a dated port. It is kept in those wooden barrels only for 18 months, and then it is bottled. And it's bottled with full lees, so it's full sediment. And there, the wine is designed to mature in the bottle. So this is the wines which can last 50, 60, 100 years in the bottle. And they get better with age.
If it's a vintage port, is it always ruby?
Yes, it's the ruby sort of tree, because it's got ruby in color. The other sort of tree is the tawnies. Now here what we're trying to do is we're trying to actually remove the actual ruby color, and we're trying to go to a tawny color. And we do that by putting it in smaller barrels. So instead of putting it in those big barrels, we put it in pipes. We put it in the 550 liters, and there the wood slowly extracts the color. And instead of having those rich berry fruits, you're now having a bit of caramel, a bit of nuts, a bit of honey. And the first tawny is an entry-level tawny. It'll be about 2 to 5 years old. And all we've done there is we stored it in the barrel. It's the same as a ruby, but it's been stored in a smaller barrel.
Does it have a name?
It's basically called a fine tawny.
Tawny.
A slight misnomer, but it's called a fine tawny. And that's the entry level. Then we go up to the 10-year-old. And for us, this is the most versatile port. It's drinkable by itself. It goes with a dessert. It goes with pecan pie. It goes with cheese. But you can also drink it by itself. You don't have to drink it. And again, rather like the Douro Rosa, you can chill this.
Yeah.
So on a hot summer's day in Portugal, we put this in the freezer. We get it ice cold, and it is absolutely delicious. And so
perhaps I might have pulled it out a bit early for us because it was quite a warm day here. But we had it in the cellar, so we had it chilled most of the afternoon. But I definitely would agree, here in Florida, it is impeccable.
Yeah,
with a slight chill on it.
I think of it as a holiday, ports as a holiday wine, because people are spending more time with their families and sitting around and maybe not focusing on work, and they can just enjoy it. But to chill it, yes. But it doesn't have to be.
It doesn't have to be.
It also could be perfectly with the slight chill like we've got right now, sitting by the fire and enjoying it, for the holidays as well.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I think Phillip would probably agree with this too, is that one of the hallmarks of, Quinta della Rosa's wines is the balance of acid to fruit. The wines are very, very drinkable because their acid level is in a way that makes you want to drink more, which is what we like about wines, I think. And the ports especially, because the acid level is really crisp and really inviting and really energizes the wine on the port side, especially. And when you chill it and you mitigate a little bit of that alcoholic vapor that's there when you're chilling it, and then you mitigate, a little bit of the acid also, it makes it a really, really, really enjoyably drinkable wine in and of itself. It doesn't have to be a distilled wine, or as Philip's saying, you can chill it and you can just drink it. It doesn't have to be a pairing wine. It doesn't have to be a dessert wine. It can be just drunk on its own. And that's what's really brilliant about a wine that's this well balanced, is that when you can do something like that, it just makes it a more enjoyable product. And I love the Quinta della Rosa wines because of the way that the fruit and the acid and all of the aging techniques kind of combine together. It makes it just an incredibly versatile wine.
I agree entirely. And also, we want to try and sort of remove that old traditional view that port is an old man's drink with a cigar at a fireside. It can still be that, but it doesn't have to be. Exactly. Exactly. Absolutely. And also the packaging, we introduced this packaging about.
The packaging is sexy. It's absolutely, I use the word sexy, and I hope that's appropriate, but I think it's beautiful, and
yeah, it looks good on yours.
Really good. It's got the
short in it. We've been seeing
ours. It shows the lady. When we first put it out earlier today, and it had that crispness on it, and that chill on it, I noted to Pepper, one of our team members or friend, family members, that it had such a clean finish, and it was so drinkable, and just such an easy
it's not
finish.
That heavy.
It doesn't have that heavy. There's no syrup element of it. It has that lightness. It has that delicacy still, even with that depth of flavor.
And so maybe that's the 10-year. I assume that as it goes up in the tree, the 20, 30, 40, I don't know how far you guys go, but
we go up to 30. We go up to 30, but you can go further.
So it gets a heavier feel to it, I assume, if you want to finish the tree.
Yeah, so then after a 10-year-old, you go to a 20-year-old and a 30-year-old, etc. And there, the color is getting less. It's getting even lighter. But because every year you keep it, you get a bit of evaporation. It does get more expensive because, we lose 3 or 4% every single year just due to evaporation. And these wines are blended. So it's 10 years old. So it's not just from 1 year. It is a blend of an average age of 10 years. So likewise with the 20-year-old, the 30-year-old, they'll all be an average age. But every time you take a bottle, it will taste the same as the previous bottle. The constituent parts might not be the same, but they've been blended by our winemaker, so they always taste the same. So every time you take the bottle, it will taste the same.
It's consistency. And that's the hallmark of a good winemaker, I think.
Certainly.
And does that mean, Phillip, that sometimes there's 15-year-old tawny in the 10-year-old tawny? I mean, how does that?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And sometimes there might even be 18, or that's very much like maybe some scotches are done in that same fashion as well. That you have the minimum age statement. If I'm thinking correctly, I sell more wine than scotch, so maybe I'm wrong, but I think there's a minimum statement that is the average of the different ages that are in there.
Yes, absolutely. Here in Portugal, you have to show the characteristics of a 10-year-old port. So they don't go through and do an averaging process. You have to show the characteristics. So I think our port is actually, our 10-year-old is actually a bit older.
And that's even more interesting because if you're doing the regulations of what you need to do aging wise, you still have the onus to have it taste like a 10-year. And that's a whole separate step than a lot of other wine regions or types of wine might have. I mean, that's incredible to have it. You still have to have it taste like a 10-year. That's incredible. That really is. When you think about it, it really is incredible.
And just for an aside, all the ports, when they have a characteristic like a 10-year-old, they have to be blind tasted, so to make sure that they meet the quality requirements. So any 10-year-old, when it's released, has to be blind tasted by a panel in a porto.
Well, and speaking of this 20 or 10-year-old, it got some great accolades as well. I know I saw James Suckling, 92 or.
Exactly. If obviously points are important in the world. Hopefully people will just taste it and like it and don't necessarily have to go by points, but we have the points to support our wines as well.
No,
Most
I saw
wines are 90
great points. Got a lot of great points, and it is a reasonable price. I don't know the price on it.
We have this priced at $30 a bottle in the shop, so it's definitely a very reasonable price for this 10-year
and for the quality you're getting.
You're talking about, you know, traditional method as far as when we looked at those pictures of the foot trotting. I mean, there's not a lot of these other port suppliers or shippers that are doing that. I mean, and also estate grown fruits. You know, you have Phillip and his sister and the winemaker and the team that are involved in this process.
Yeah.
I think we all know what big brand wines are in America, especially in Florida, where we have a lot of supermarket wines. We know what those things are. This is not one of those things. This is not, I'm not going to say the names, but of the ports, but they're out there, and I think everybody knows what they are. This is not one of those things, and you can get it for a very good price, or even less expensive than some of those names that are, you know, on the billboards or in the full page ads in the wine magazines. So I think this is really incredible to have something that's a family-owned project that has people really putting their heart and soul and their fingernails and their feet literally into it. Hope that doesn't sound too weird for people, but I really love that about it. So
yeah, I agree. And I will say the other thing is the wonderful thing about port is that you don't have to drink an entire bottle in a night. Feel free to, you know, buy a bottle, sip on it, enjoy it with your family, or if you want to put it in the fridge and then bring it out the next night. I mean, it lasts. It's not something
that was definitely one of the questions of a few of our customers. And I'm sure Phillip can speak to this further, but my understanding is that, you know, you have a week, 2 weeks, a couple weeks to enjoy this.
Absolutely, and especially with the Tawneys. So the Tawny is an oxidized port, so it's going through an oxidization process already. So actually, it will last 3-4 weeks, no problem, especially if you put it in a fridge and if you use one of those vacuum pumps or whatever to get some of the air out, it will last even longer. And so a Tawny, if you're new to port, try the Tawny because it will last longer. It won't degrade nearly as fast as a ruby port. A ruby port will only last 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Okay, good to know. I just have always loved the tawny ports. I actually chose this tonight because I like tawny, and it was a reasonable price. So I thought people would enjoy that as well. I've always liked the whole kind of nutty, I don't know, butterscotchy almost kind of thing that has it going on. So there's
a depth of richness to it that is certainly appropriate to me when I think about fall, when I think about the holidays, when I think about perhaps, and I know it doesn't have to be celebratory in essence, but as we cross into that season,
holiday season,
I mean, like this seems so perfect to like sit on my porch with my grandfather and like sip and talk stories of every year that I missed of my family.
It's a family. It's a family wine.
Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly a family, and I think it embodies that richness. And I know that it certainly it means something to us. Coming from such a wealth of like a family winery and such a depth of history that comes from your family, that's something that we tie into so closely here at Aragon. We love that and supporting that.
Yeah, we're a great believer in the family. We hopefully will all get together for Christmas, but in Europe, we've got some quite strict lockdown regulations coming in for. So hopefully we'll have a family Christmas, but we might not.
Phillip, I hope that for you.
I do too.
I really do.
And also Phillip's been to Pensacola last year, I think it was. It feels like it was years ago now that we've gone through this whole thing. But
it was January,
but Phillip was here a year ago, I think it was, or maybe it was, I don't even know. I can't even keep track of it anymore. But Pensacola has been really, I think, in a great way behind port wine in a really tremendous way, and I'm extremely excited about that. Because I think people are really understanding that it doesn't just have to be something you buy in October, November, December, like we all do around the holidays in America. But it's great just every Saturday, every Friday night to have a great glass of 10-year-old tawny port that will be great after you had a really delicious pork chop or something, which I would love this with like a really great pork chop. It would be awesome. So you should just have it all the time. You should have it around all the time. It's just a tremendous bottle of wine. And I thank Phillip for coming here to Pensacola last year and also being on here tonight as well. It's really a treat, and I know it's late there, so I wanted to say thank you to you, sir. Thank you for coming on, and appreciate it very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Yes. So Phillip, we do appreciate you coming, and I know it is late there, and I know you've got other places to be, but I hope that you have a good holiday season, and I hope that we do get to see you either in Pensacola or in Portugal. We would love that. I see you're invited to come here, and we're invited to come there apparently. So
absolutely.
Yeah, I hope you have a wonderful holiday. Thank you again for joining us, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Bye. Oh, he's such a nice man.
I know, so nice.
Yeah, I know. And I'm going to take him up on that offer. Seriously.
I
know.
Isn't that so cool that like his grandmother had that, given to her as a christening present in the,
When I started researching for the newsletter on Monday, I have the joy of kind of going back and investigating some of these things every week and getting to the nuts and bolts of some of these vineyards, and that was so beautiful and fascinating to me.
Yeah, it's really neat.
The fact that it was almost like a wedding gift, a dowry, and for her and for their family to go through these trials and triumphs through the Depression and through many other periods of time that we're familiar with, and to still produce such amazing wines, as well as these incredible ports. I mean, I know it doesn't have to be a holiday to celebrate them, but to some degree for us, it is so appropriate to have these at your family table to celebrate. And I think the holidays are going to have so.
Yeah, I will say, thanks. I will say that I wanted to say hi to some of the people that are watching tonight. Marcello is watching, and he said hello to Monsieur Fix. Anna Rodriguez wants us to savor a couple of bottles, and we will. Yvonne's watching. Hi, Yvonne. Then I feel like, Ada. Oh, Pam Davies said to try the tawny with milk and dark chocolates. Oh, she said the milk chocolates is the way to go. So
for the win.
Good to know.
Great.
For the win. Yeah, thanks. I didn't know what FTW was, but
for the win.
old lady over here doesn't know what FTW is, but a milk chocolate is for the win with the tawny. So I'm sure both chocolates are probably good, but I can imagine the creaminess of the milk would probably go really well with it. So so next week we're so excited about these. Vahara. Did I say that correctly, Fix?
Vahara.
GD Vara or Vira. It's either Vira or Vara.
So we have the Rosa and the Nebbiolo.
Yeah, we have we have two Langhe wines. So the Langhe Hills are an area of Piemonte. This is the one wine is the Langhe Rosa, which is a blend. There's Francois Montan.
Which is not Nebbiolo, but he's so beautiful.
We have, I think, the best value Piemonte winery. We'll have somebody joining us from Girivara. I think they're in New York City right now.
Nice.
And so we have the Langhe Rosa, which is a blend of Nebbiolo, Dolcetto, Barbera, which are the three main grapes in Piemonte. And then we also have the Langhe Nebbiolo, which is the way that wine is kind of produced is kind of like a baby Barolo. So if everybody likes Barolo, but they don't want to spend, $45 or so, they can get a bottle of Nebbiolo for, I guess, maybe it's 26 or 27.
Actually, we have it moderately priced at $23 a bottle.
Yeah. So, basically it's
only 15. So you have the beautiful opportunity to explore these Italian
wines.
I
totally forgot how, like, when you suggested these, I was like, sure, whatever. And then when they came in, I was like, I love these wines. As soon as I saw the label, I realized
the labels are gorgeous.
The labels are gorgeous, and the wines are equally gorgeous.
And I would say, the Langhe Nebbiolo is there for the people that like Barbaresco or Barolo. The Langhe Rosso, which is really great, is there for people who like certainly Barbera or Dolcetto, but also if you really like serious Burgundy, I think you're really gonna like this. I mean, like good full body Burgundy. If you like, really great Syrah wines or Rhone Valley wines, you're gonna like this wine too. It's really incredible. I think people have asked me over the years, what's the one wine you would sell if you could sell any wine? It would be this Giudivara Langhe Rosso that's for $15. I'm telling you,
a pretty big statement.
It's an incredible wine for the price, and it will drink for a number of years. It's exceptional.
Yeah. I think that we take a giant step back and really evaluate the fact that this is like, if you could sell one red wine for your entire duration, this would be it. Then I think that's something.
This is the one. I've said this for probably 5 years. So
the packaging is beautiful, and I always love, leading up to these weekly tastings, people will say, "Have you had it?" And most of the time, I have not had the pleasure of enjoying it. And so I'm purely going by the packaging with you, and the packaging is beautiful, the label is beautiful, but the backstory and having that kind of wealth of support from Fix of being like, this is what's up, I think is definitely important to acknowledge.
And the Varas have, their family-run operation. The two parents and Francesca and Giuseppe and everybody who's involved, they are hands-on and they are passionate about what they do. And they have some really great holdings of vineyard holdings where they get some really great grapes that they can harvest. And because of that, and because of the way that they make their wines, the way that they vinify them, they are, I think, really a very forward-thinking operation, but they also don't forget about their past also, if that makes sense. They're willing to do some fun things. Like, for instance, they make one of the best Rieslings I've ever had in my life, and it's from Italy. And nobody would really ever think that. But they also really are true to doing some traditional oak aging and things like that. So they're a really amazing family, and I love. They have some beautiful stained glass windows in their winery and in their house, and so it's a really cool place.
That sounds really neat. So. I'm looking forward to that next week, and we'll get somebody who's joining us.
That'll be Kevin Natoli, who is going to be joining us from. I think he lives in Brooklyn, which sounds cool.
Yeah.
Anyway, no matter what, maybe he doesn't. I'm just going to say it's Brooklyn because that just sounds cool.
Brooklyn. Hey.
Say what are you going to do?
What are you going to do? What do you say? What do you do? What do you know?
All right. Well, thanks, Fix. We've got a lot of good stuff planned for the rest of this month and into November. So we really appreciate all your help with these virtual wine tastings. Fix has been a lifesaver, and he has stepped up and really made the last few months. Does he have a dog? What? Do you have a dog?
Is that a cute Francois dog? Is that cute?
Oh, here he comes. Oh. Anyway, thanks, Fix.
Thank you. As always. Ciao.
All right. Well, that was good. Another great show. I'm really looking forward to some of the things that we have coming up. We've got next week, we've got the Italian, and the week after that, we're going to do a special Halloween tasting, which will be lots of fun.
It'll be astounding.
Time is fleeting.
Perhaps.
And then after that, the 1st of November, we've got our 12th anniversary tasting. So we're going to do some fun promos for that, and that's going to be a special tasting. So be sure to tune in for all of those. Remember the holiday parties, remember the holiday boxes, and if you need anything, just call and text us. We're going to save Anna. We'll save you a couple of the bottles from tonight. If anybody else wants anything, just reach out. We're happy to do curbside still, or pull things for you, or special orders, and all that.
All right.
Good night.
Thanks, guys.